The great stupa at Sanchi is supposed to contain some relics of Buddha. Around the 3rd century before Christ, the famous emperor Ashoka the Great commissioned the construction of this amazing stupa. Later on, at the end of the 2nd century, the famous gateways were built by the king Satakarni from the Satavahana dynasty. One important thing is that in those days the panels and sculptures never depicted the Buddha as a human figure. In the stories of his life, the Buddha is represented by imagery such as one of the horse on which he left his father's home, by his footprints, and his enlightened moment is depicted by the Bodhi tree. Probably the human body was too human to express the greatness of the Buddha. His human birth is represented by Maya Devi holding on to the branch of a tree, as the legend said that the prince Siddhartha may have emerged from her right side while she was holding the tree. But what is very interesting is that Maya Devi, his mother, Buddha's mother, is represented with her mons pubis exposed, probably to give the idea of childbirth. This was depicted around the 2nd century before Christ. Following the same idea of birth and fertility, we can see the Lajja Gauri also with her mons pubis exposed. This image is from the 6th century from Mandasaur. Lajja Gauri is a goddess associated with abundance and fertility. Not only she has her genitals exposed, but she has her legs open. Strange enough, she has been called Lajja, that means, as a matter of fact, reserve, or pudica, reserve, modest. That is almost the contrary of abundance and fertility. Often, Lajja Gauri has, instead of a human head, a flowered lotus. The position is all the time the one that many women in Asia do while giving birth, with the legs open. It seems that exposing the female genitals in a sculpture evolved in an interesting way in Karnataka. In almost all the Hoysala temples between the 10th to the 14th century, we find a young woman with her sex exposed and holding a serpent in her hands. She is called the poison girl, Visha Kanya. These sculptures of a young woman with a snake in the hands or around her legs, symbolizing the poison, were probably inspired in the 6th century by a play written by Visha Kanya. In that story, one girl, one young woman, was habituated to drink small doses of snake's poison until she became herself a poison creature. As she was beautiful and sexy, she was then sent to the enemy. By having sex with her, the men got poisoned and died. The poisoned girls were seen as protectors of the kingdom. In panels around the temples, even in Khajuraho, goddesses or apsaras are seldom displaying their genitals. We see men depicted displaying the genitals, but very seldom women are exposing them. Even in the yogini world, it is very rare. A small ornament, a foot, a garland are often protecting the yoni area. The body of Kamada Yogini in Veragat is not showing her personal parts, even though it is exposed separately for divine veneration. I wonder how much of the ancient legends come alive in the mind of the visitor of the temples. How much of the ancient myths and symbolism are alive in the hearts of the people in towns and villages when they pass every day and see the sculpture of young women exposing their genitals. All this, is it a symbol of protection as the poison girl was in the 6th century? Or is it a symbol of fertility and prosperity as it was in the 2nd century before Christ, that this symbol maybe survive and transform through the language of Tantras? All these mysteries are hidden everywhere around India. Amazing stories and legends are depicted in temples' walls, in sculptures, or even in situations in everyday's life.